Journalism is a very thankless profession. You have to create a controversy, you need not create a controversy. When it comes to the Border Gavaskar Trophy, Australia's media have tried in so many ways to create a controversy. The Virat Kohli incident in Melbourne, wherein he argued with a female journalist that please do not take photos of my children. If you do, you need to take my permission. Although at that time, you could argue that yes, clicking photographs in a public place in Australia doesn't require permission. Maybe Kohli's hyper obsession with privacy probably got him in the wrong. But heading into the Melbourne Test match, there was yet another controversy which erupted. And that was Ravindra Jadeja. Now, Ravindra Jadeja was attending the press conference. He had come slightly late. And then he had to also ensure that he finishes within those 10 minutes to ensure that he goes out. Now, this is where the controversy began. Everything that is involved at this point in time, a clip is up also, you can also check it out what happened. But here is what the timeline of chaos happened. This time, the Australian media ran a particular headline saying, Boxing Day tensions rise again after India's latest media stunt at the MCG. Australian reporters gathered at the MCG but had no idea what was to unfold. Now, Jadeja spoke in Hindi. The Australian media requested a byte in English. It was not done. And then there was a lot of abuse that was directed. Now, this is the timeline that what happened. The Indian team, now there is the rumor going around that Jadeja categorically refused to answer questions in English. The Indian team management have denied this. They have said the claim itself is wrong, that Jadeja categorically refused to answer questions in English. Jadeja answered all questions in Hindi since everything directed to him were in Hindi. Now there are two problems in that. Press conferences, whenever you attend, whenever you are invited for a press conference, the player's comfort and the way how he answers in which language is important. Jadeja was more comfortable speaking in Hindi, and that is why he chose to give it in Hindi. Despite the fact that you are in Melbourne, you aren't in Mumbai. Yet, it was only open to the media at that time for the Indian media. Then what happened? Jadeja's PC, the interaction was originally only planned for the Indian media. But then the Australian media came to know about it, and that's why they also came. The Indian team had no issue when the Australians became aware and attended. So many times when you look at it, a PC is exclusively only for the Australian players. That time it's organized, the Indian players aren't in attendance. This time, the Indian team had no problem in accommodating Australian journalists and say, okay, go ahead and you can be there for the PC. But you could see during the PC video that I was gesturing that no, we can't ask, he has to go, and that is why when that happened, the Australian media decided to lambast the Indian manager, the Indian media manager at that point in time. Now, Sports Today's own reporter is there in Australia at this point in time, and his input is very, very important. He stated, few Australian journalists got annoyed and argued with the Indian team's media manager. They misbehaved as well, which was uncalled for. You could see some expletives were being thrown, although not very expletive, but yes, certain things which you could get offended by. During the Australian press conferences, many Indian journalists don't get the chance to ask questions due to time shortages, but they don't abuse the Australians in that sense. So, in that way, there are two arguments in this whole fiasco that has happened. Firstly, if you want a press conference which is in a foreign soil, why not have it in the universal language of English, which makes it easy for both sides? However, a player should be comfortable with the language with which he speaks in. That is entirely his prerogative. So, the Australian media's outrage is totally misplaced. When Harshit Rana was speaking in Perth, there is an instance there also. Harshit Rana was speaking in Perth. At that time, the Australian media had no problem. Why suddenly do they have a problem now in Melbourne? The players themselves haven't raised any issue. They have Ravindra Jadeja, when he went, at that time the Australian media were targeting the Indian team manager, media manager at that time. However, Again, let me reiterate, this entire controversy that the Australian media are generating, it's misplaced. And second, going forward, in a foreign country, the universal language is English. Most people know English. Can't you hold the PC in English for the sake of both countries' media? Very few know two languages. And that is why this controversy is erupted. On the other hand, a player has the right to speak in any language that he feels comfortable. So that's why the Australian media have to stop sensationalizing every single bit. British, Australian medias are all woven out of the same cloth. But as I said, journalism is a thankless field. When there is no controversy, people create it. When there is a controversy, people try to downplay it. That is the nature of the beast which is in. Thank you so much, folks, for joining us for this video. Subscribe to Sports Today for all the latest news and analysis.